Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will continue our story about man who was kicked out by his father so his golden child half-brother could move in. But then 6 months later, they're begging him to lie to cover up his brother crime or they'll go to jail. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly recommend watching it on our channel first to fully understand the story and its progression. Let's get started. Now, I could have moved out and started living with my mom's parents after her, but they live really far away, and I still had a year of school left, so that was not an option for me. But then a couple of months ago, when my father found out that his golden child would be coming back home, he kicked me out anyway. And I ended up moving to live with my grandparents. Derek had moved out for college a couple of years ago, but he hadn't returned to live here after that. After he graduated, he got a job there and decided to stay because his girlfriend wanted to stay there and make a life for themselves away from home. So Derek decided to stay there with her and would only come back for the holidays occasionally. About 2 years ago, he got married to his girlfriend because she was pregnant. They had just graduated when they found out, and it seemed like pretty perfect timing, so they decided to get hitched. I was invited to the wedding, surprisingly, and just for that one day, he did not terrorize me. My mother was also present there in spite of her condition because even though he didn't like it, everybody liked my mom, and he wasn't particularly close to his own mother since she was kind of a bad mom. I'm saying this because she was the kind of mother who just didn't care about her kid or having a relationship with her child. The woman was already in her fourth marriage by the time Derek got married, and it honestly appeared to me that her goal in life was to be rich. She worked and earned her own money, no doubt. But that was at the cost of her relationship with her son. I guess that explains why Derek was so attached to our father. He pretty much only had one parent who cared about him, and of course, he didn't want to share that parent with me. Anyway, Dad got married, and soon after, he had a kid as well. They have been living happily there for the past 2 years, but I don't know why. For some reason, 6 months ago, they decided to move back. My dad just informed me about it like 2 weeks before Derek was supposed to come home. He was really smug about it as well, and he sat me down one day and told me that I needed to find a place to live because Derek would be coming back home, and I had to give up my room. We had 3 bedrooms, so I asked him why they couldn't just use the guest room. He told me that Derek and his wife were going to live in the guest room and they were going to use my room as the nursery. It was apparently imperative that I leave the house because I was already enough since I was going to be an adult in just a few months. I thought it was really unnecessary and selfish of my father to demand that I leave the house altogether just because he wanted to move back here with his family. I tried to fight with my father, but there was no talking to him because he had already made up his mind. He told me that I had 2 weeks to clear out, and after that, if I didn't leave, then he would call the cops on me. Now, I'm aware that there must have been some legal way to fight this and prevent it from happening. But at the time, it didn't occur to me, and I was really panic-stricken because I didn't trust my father. And I knew that he was fully capable of kicking me out without notice. So I started rushing to find a place for myself. But eventually, I settled on moving in with my grandparents. I had avoided doing that so far because they lived so far away, and I still had to go to school. But at the time, I just didn't have any other options. And there were just a couple of weeks of high school left at that point anyway. So I was willing to take that risk. Within days, I'd moved out because I didn't want to be there when Derek came back home with his wife and child. My father didn't seem to care when I moved out and didn't even say goodbye to me the day that I had packed up. I was leaving with the movers. My grandparents had come all the way to pick me up in their truck, and they had half a mind to tear into my father. But I told them not to do it because it just wasn't worth the drama. 6 months have passed since that day, and I have been living with my grandparents. I haven't been in touch with my father ever since he kicked me out, and I didn't plan on getting back in touch with him either. I was supposed to start college in a couple of weeks, and that was already going to be taken care of. I had literally no incentive to speak to my dad or Derek ever again. But unfortunately, they were the ones who had to reach out to me because something had happened, and they now needed me to bail them out. They visited me a couple of days ago, and I was quite surprised because I hadn't been expecting them to reach out to me at any point. But my grandparents still let them in, and I decided to have a conversation with them because they seemed pretty desperate. I found out that apparently the reason Derek had come back here with his family was because he had lost his job earlier and was struggling to make rent. So he made the difficult choice of coming back here. His wife was all right with it because she wanted to be a stay at home mom and didn't want to work until their kid was a little older. So this was their best bet. When they came back, they expected to find work easily, but that was not the case because literally none of the companies around were hiring right now, and people with Derek's skill set were extremely common. So it wasn't as if he was a standout candidate either. But somehow my father managed to get him a job in the company that he works in. Neither of them was happy about it because it paid a little less than what Derek used to make before, but that was all they had, so they had to make the best of their situation. But as it turns out, Derek had been stealing from the company for a couple of months now, and it had finally come to light a few weeks ago. Now my father and Derek are both in trouble because their employers think that they were in cahoots and are threatening to file a lawsuit against them if they don't return the money soon enough. The only reason that they haven't been sued yet is because it's a family business, and the CEO of the company used to be a great friend of my mom's. It's only out of respect for her that he hasn't filed a lawsuit against them yet for embezzlement. But he's not going to hold out for longer. My father and Derek wanted me to help them out. They wanted me to claim that they needed the money for my college fund, which is why they had been stealing, and it was not for their own personal gain. My father believed that this would make him take it easy on us and buy them some time to return the money. They would still get fired, but at least they wouldn't end up going to prison because of this. They were counting on me to help them out and paint the perfect picture of being a poor little victim. I couldn't believe that they had the audacity to ask something like this of me after the way they had treated me their entire life. I said no almost instantly without even considering it because it was a crazy idea, and I was pretty sure that it was not going to work. Their plan was simply ridiculous, and I didn't want to be a part of it. When I told them that I didn't want to be a part of their plan, they started getting really agitated and told me that I had to help them out because there was a very real chance that they might end up going to jail. I couldn't let some petty grudge from years ago ruin their lives, so I told them that it wasn't a petty grudge, and it certainly wasn't from years ago. My father had only recently kicked me out, and I hadn't even been a year since then, so I would say that it was pretty recent. But that wasn't even the main reason that I didn't want to help them. I just thought that their plan was really dishonest, and I actually happened to know the guy that my dad worked for. Like I said, my mother and he were really good friends, and he also seemed to like me. He and my mother had pretty much grown up together, and I used to refer to him as my uncle whenever he would come around when my mom was still alive. Even at her funeral, we had a nice conversation, and we liked each other. My mom was actually the one who had told him to give my father a job in his company when my dad had been struggling. But instead of being thankful, not only had Derek decided to try and make a fool out of these people, but my dad was now trying to cover it all up and use me as a shield. I thought that it was really low, and I couldn't in good conscience be a part of this. So I told them that it would be in their best interest if they just tried to pay off whatever amount they had stolen instead of trying to cover it up with more lies and stuff, because I wasn't going to be on their side here. They might end up going to jail if they tried to fool him again. In fact, they should even have been grateful that they were being given a chance to pay that money off and get out of this without a lawsuit that they would most definitely lose, and that would ruin their future because they would definitely go to jail for it. They had no idea just how easy things were for them right now and exactly how complicated they could become if they decided to go through with their crazy plan. I tried to explain it to them, but my dad got really mad and said that he wasn't here to listen to a sermon from me, and if I wanted to help them, then I would agree to their plan instead of giving them advice that meant absolutely nothing. So I told him that I wasn't going to be a part of this, and to my surprise, my dad actually started crying. I had never seen this happen before, and it made me feel really uncomfortable. He told me that he had been counting on me because I was his son at the end of the day, and no matter what had happened in the past, he knew that he would have helped me out if I was in a situation like this. He said that he expected the same of me because this was a huge deal, and he really didn't want to go to prison. Derek also had the same sentiment, and he was begging me to help them out because he knew that I was well liked among my mom's friends, and I was the only one who could bail them out. My mom would have made this much easier, but since she was gone, I was the next best person to deal with it, and they were banking on me. It was difficult, but I still had to turn them down. I tried to encourage them to just come clean and repay the money that they owed. They got really upset and said that the only reason I was screwing them over was because they used to mess with me when I was little. And they were really disappointed with how I was dealing with things now. They left after that, but I keep thinking about it. And the guilt is eating away at me because I keep imagining them in jail. I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. But at the same time, I don't want to be a part of something illegal and so immoral. It would be an insult to my mother as well, because I would technically be using her friendship and manipulating a really good friend of hers. I'm really conflicted right now about what I should do. Time is of the essence at the moment because it's not like my dad and Derek have forever to pay off their debts. That's the end of part 2 of this story. What do you guys think about this whole situation? What would you do if you were in his shoes? Let me know in the comment, and I will see you in the next video.